I didn't find out they cut me out until the champagne corks popped. That's how it all started, with a toast I wasn't invited to. My name's Lena Carver, and for 5 years, I built the bones of Harrington and Vale's biggest project, a government logistics overhaul worth millions. I wasn't just a cog in their corporate machine. I designed the gears. Every late-night strategy call, every 4 a.m. budget fix. It was my signature on every spreadsheet that kept the company alive. I wasn't chasing fame. I just wanted respect, to prove that loyalty still meant something in business. My boss, Elliot Vale, knew that. He played the mentor role perfectly. Sharp suits, sharper smile. The kind of man who made you feel seen when he said your name. You're not just an employee, Lena, he told me once, pouring me a drink after another 14-hour day. You're family. And I believed him. We'd spent years side by side, turning chaos into order. He was the strategist. I was the executor. Together, we dragged the company from near bankruptcy into the black. And when the government deal landed on our desks, worth 8 figures in bonuses and legacy, Elliot said the words that sealed it. 50-50, no matter what. We're partners now. He had me draft the contract myself. Ironclad. Legal. Signed by both of us. That piece of paper was my lifeline. My proof that I'd finally built something no one could take from me. But success has a smell, and it draws predators. The project went public. Media buzz. Investors calling. Suddenly, the humble office we'd built our empire in became a parade of polished strangers. And at the center of it all stood Elliot. Grinning, shaking hands, taking credit. He started canceling our meetings, delegating my work to his new assistant, a slick MBA grad named Chloe, who smiled like a mirror, all reflection, no warmth. Mr. Vale said you should focus on the back-end reports, Lena, she'd chirp. He's handling the executive side now. It was subtle at first. A missed invitation here, a forgotten CC there. Then my name disappeared from the project decks altogether. When the deal finally closed, they held a celebration at the downtown hotel. Champagne, applause, bonuses handed out like confetti. My phone stayed silent. Still, I told myself it was just a mistake. After all, Elliot was my partner. My friend. But as I watched the photos flood my feed that night, the clinking glasses, the fat checks, the caption, couldn't have done it without the team briefcase. I felt something twist inside me. Because I wasn't in a single shot. And for the first time, a thought I'd never dared to have before crossed my mind. Maybe family was just another word for ownership. The Monday after the celebration, the office felt off. Not dramatically. No shouting, no confrontations. Just quieter. The kind of silence that hums when people know something you don't. I walked in carrying a tray of coffees, like always, expecting the usual chaos of ringing phones and half-done presentations. But when I stepped into the bullpen, conversations dipped. Laughter paused mid-breath. Eyes darted, then looked away. Elliot's door, always open, was closed. I knocked, 3 soft taps. His voice came through, calm but distant. Give me a minute, Lena. A minute turned into an hour. By the time he called me in, the air between us had changed. His smile looked rehearsed, stretched too thin around the edges. Lena, great work wrapping up those back-end reports, he said, not meeting my eyes. We're moving into a new phase now, and I'll need you to handle the transition files. Transition to what? I asked. He cleared his throat. To the next project. I'll be overseeing client relations from here on. That didn't make sense. We'd always handled that together. I wanted to ask why my name wasn't in the new decks Chloe was distributing, why she now sat in my old chair at the strategy table. But the words stuck in my throat. He'd promised we were partners. Maybe he was just restructuring. I told myself to trust him. That night, while finishing up the data sheets, I noticed something strange. The shared project folder, the one where all the financials lived, had a new access log. My name had been removed from editor privileges. Replaced by Chloe Warner. It had to be a mistake. It had to be. I sent Elliot a quick message. Hey, looks like I lost access to the financial files. Can you fix it? Elliot. Oh, yeah, IT's tightening permissions. Nothing personal. Nothing personal. I tried to shake it off. People change when success hits. They get busy, protective, territorial. It didn't mean he was cutting me out. Right. But then came the second red flag. A company-wide memo. Please direct all questions regarding Project Aegis to Mr. Vale or Ms. Warner. Not Ms. Carver. Not me. When I walked past the conference room that afternoon, Elliot and Chloe were inside. Lights dimmed, heads close, laughter muffled behind the glass. The kind of laughter that sounds like secrets. I stood there for a second, watching, before pretending I'd just been passing by. Back at my desk, the contract sat in my drawer, the original, signed copy of our 50-50 deal. I ran my fingers along the paper, tracing the ink like a lifeline. He wouldn't break it. He couldn't. Still, for the first time, I wasn't sure I believed that. Because when trust starts to rot, it doesn't scream. It whispers. And lately, all I could hear were whispers. I found out by accident. A single misdelivered email, the kind of mistake that changes everything. It was late, almost midnight, and I was still in the office. The cleaners had come and gone, their vacuums humming like white noise while I finished what was supposed to be my transition documentation. That's what Elliot called it, a tidy way to describe dismantling everything I'd built. The email hit my inbox at 12:07 a.m. Subject line, finalized bonus allocations, Project Aegis. I opened it without thinking. It wasn't meant for me. I could tell right away. It was addressed to Elliot Vale, Chloe Warner, and the finance director. The spreadsheet attached was simple. Just columns of names, titles, and numbers. My eyes went straight to the executive team section. Elliot Vale, $3.5 million. Chloe Warner, $1.2 million. Total bonuses distributed, $4.7 million. That was it. No Lena Carver. No mention. Not even a rounding error. I sat there staring at the screen, my coffee gone cold, my pulse pounding in my ears. Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe my name was on another tab. I checked. Nothing. My hands shook as I clicked, Show Version History. The file had been updated that morning, by Elliot himself. I read through the notes, line by line. There it was, in plain text. Remove L. Carver per contract revision. Signed addendum, dated March 3rd. My blood ran cold. March 3rd. There was no addendum. There couldn't be. I hadn't signed anything. I pulled up the company server, the legal folder where we stored agreements. It took minutes. Long, crawling, nauseating minutes. But I found it. A scanned PDF. Partnership addendum. Project Aegis. 2 signatures. Elliot's. And mine. Except the second one wasn't mine. He'd forged it. He'd actually forged my signature, and quietly replaced the original contract weeks before the bonus distribution. I read the line 3 times before the words sank in. Ms. Carver forfeits bonus participation rights in exchange for extended project management duties. He hadn't just taken my money. He'd rewritten my worth. The room spun. My throat burned. Every word he'd ever said, your family, 50-50, trust me, twisted into something foul and hollow. I tried to breathe, but all that came out was a shaky laugh. The kind of laugh that hurts. I printed everything, the email, the forged contract, the logs, and tucked them into a plain folder. My hands moved without thinking. Precise. When I finally stood, I looked through the glass wall of Elliot's office. His suit jacket hung neatly on the back of his chair. His nameplate gleamed under the lamplight. I'd built that empire with him. Brick by brick. Now I knew how easily he'd bury me beneath it. The shock burned itself into something colder, something sharper. And in that quiet, sterile office, beneath the hum of fluorescent lights, a single thought crystallized. He thinks he cut me out. He has no idea what's coming. For 2 days, I couldn't step foot in the office. I told HR I had the flu, which wasn't far from the truth. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My stomach was a knot of betrayal and disbelief, looping the same question over and over. How could he do this to me? The forged contract sat on my kitchen table, right beside the mug Elliot had given me last Christmas. Best partner in the game. I stared at it until the words blurred. I'd built my life around loyalty, to the company, to him, to the idea that hard work meant something. And in a single keystroke, he'd turned that faith into a joke. By the third night, the grief curdled into rage. I poured myself a drink and opened the folder again, hoping it would somehow read differently in the morning light. That's when I noticed something I'd missed before. In the corner of the PDF metadata, under document source, it read, edited from original, file path/contracts, archive/Carver ownership. Ownership. That wasn't part of the bonus contract. My breath caught as I dug through the archives, tracing every version, every backup. And there it was, buried in an older file, time-stamped from the project's first month. A clause I'd added myself, one Elliot had never noticed. All derivative systems, processes, and documentation developed under Project Aegis are the intellectual property of the author, L. Carver. I froze. My hands went numb. That meant everything, every model, every report, every system they used to secure the deal, legally belonged to me. The realization hit like fire through my veins. The bonus was gone, yes. But the contract, the foundation of Project Aegis, that was mine. All of it. I remembered the night I'd written that clause, sitting alone in the office, half delirious on caffeine and stubborn pride. I'd added it because, deep down, I knew the corporate world played dirty. I just never thought it would be him. That line, that one small overlooked detail, was my lifeline. My proof. My weapon. I felt something shift inside me, something I hadn't felt since before the betrayal. Control. The tears dried. The fear faded. What replaced them wasn't peace. It was purpose. Elliot thought he'd erased me from the story. But stories don't end when the villain says they do. I closed the folder and stared out my window at the city skyline, the same skyline our project had helped power. Every light out there represented someone who trusted the system I'd built. And now, it would be the system that brought him down. You took my bonus, I whispered, voice steady for the first time in days. Now I'll take your legacy. I didn't know how yet. But I knew this much. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. By the time I returned to the office, I was someone else. Not the eager strategist who once stayed late to go the extra mile. Not the woman who flinched every time Elliot's tone turned sharp. No, that Lena Carver was gone. This version smiled. She said good morning. She played along. But every polite nod, every of course Elliot, was a calculated move on a chessboard he didn't even know he was standing on. Over the next week, I became invisible. I let them think I was beaten, the quiet worker fading into the background. But behind the silence, I was watching. Every document, every transaction, every signed statement that could tie Elliot to the forged contract, I copied it all. Late one night, I convinced IT to give me temporary admin access, under the pretense of cleaning up archived files. What I really did was pull metadata records, digital fingerprints showing when Elliot altered the bonus agreement, and which device he used. It was all there. Timestamps, IP addresses, authorization codes. Enough to prove the fraud in any boardroom or courtroom. I started small. Casual coffee with Priya from finance. I asked gentle questions, let her vent about the executive favoritism. Within minutes, she was telling me everything. Turns out, she'd noticed inconsistencies in the Aegis payouts too. Bonuses approved without the required partner counter-signature. Between us, she whispered, glancing over her shoulder, it's like he wanted no paper trail that connected to you. Perfect. By Friday, I'd looped in one more ally, Ben from legal. He owed me a favor from a deal I'd helped him untangle last year. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to pique his curiosity. A forged contract, a missing bonus, an audit issue. He agreed to take a look. Elliot was hosting a major investor dinner the following week, a high-profile event to celebrate the company's next era. I made sure every department head got an invite. Everyone except me. That was fine. I planned to attend anyway, as a guest speaker. I crafted a simple presentation, one that framed Project Aegis as a case study in ethical innovation. My name, the rightful creator of the Aegis systems, was embedded in every slide, every schematic. The contract clause giving me ownership rights, displayed right at the end, in bold legal clarity. All I had to do was time it perfectly. Elliot still smiled at me in the halls, unaware that the floor beneath him was already cracking. Chloe kept giving me those smug, knowing glances, the kind that once stung. Now, I just smiled back. Because I'd stopped trying to survive their game. I was rewriting the rules. And as I watched Elliot rehearse his victory speech through the glass of the boardroom, I knew something he didn't. By next week, his empire wouldn't just tremble. It would fall. Elliot Vale loved an audience. So when he stood at the front of the ballroom, bathed in golden light, he was in his element, all charm and confidence, shaking hands with investors who only saw the polish, not the rot beneath. The Harrington and Vale annual investor dinner was meant to crown his legacy. The banners read, innovation, integrity, impact. The irony could have choked me. I stood in the back, blending in among the catering staff in a sleek black dress. My presentation was queued up, listed in the event schedule as Project Aegis, the next generation. Elliot didn't even know I was on the program. That was the beauty of it. He'd gotten so used to deleting my name that he never imagined someone could put it back. He took the stage, smiling that signature smile. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, this is the proudest night of my career. Project Aegis changed the landscape of corporate logistics, and it's only the beginning. Applause thundered. Cameras flashed. And then the lights dimmed. The host's voice came over the speakers. Before we move forward, we'd like to give the floor to the woman behind the original Aegis framework, Ms. Lena Carver. The room fell into stunned silence. Elliot's head snapped toward the back, disbelief etched across his face as I stepped up to the stage, calm and unhurried. Good evening, I said, taking the microphone. Project Aegis was built on one principle: integrity through transparency. Let's talk about what that really means. Behind me, the screen lit up, the familiar project schematics, the data flow models, all stamped with my name and signature. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Then came the contract, the real one. 5 years ago, I continued, I signed a 50-50 partnership with Mr. Vale. We both benefited, until he decided he didn't need me anymore. I tapped my remote. The next slide appeared, a side-by-side comparison of the authentic contract and the forged addendum. Red highlights showed every falsified line. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. And for anyone questioning authenticity, I said softly, the metadata logs tell the rest. The screen shifted again, digital timestamps, file paths, and login records bearing Elliot Vale's credentials. Elliot lunged for the stage. This is slander. You can't. Actually, interrupted a calm voice from the crowd. She can. It was Ben from legal. And right beside him, Priya from finance, holding a folder labeled Internal Audit Findings. The investors' faces changed from confusion to fury. Cameras were still rolling. Every whisper became another nail in his coffin. He tried to speak, but no one was listening anymore. By the time security escorted him out, he wasn't shouting, he was silent. Just like the night he cut me out. I stood there, letting the noise fade, watching the empire I'd built and he'd stolen crumble beneath the weight of truth. Greed built it. Integrity ended it. When the applause finally rose, I didn't smile. I just whispered, mostly to myself. You cut me out of the bonus, Elliot. I owned the whole damn contract. And for the first time in months, the silence that followed didn't hurt. It healed. The headlines broke before dawn. Vale under investigation for contract fraud. Whistleblower exposes Aegis scandal. Harrington and Vale loses key investors overnight. By sunrise, the empire he'd built on deception was already in ashes. I watched it unfold quietly from my apartment. No champagne, no victory speech. Just the hum of the city outside and the faint buzz of my phone as messages poured in. Some from colleagues who'd once avoided my gaze. Some from journalists who suddenly remembered my name. Elliot resigned that same afternoon. The board forced it through before the markets opened. Chloe vanished from the company site within hours. Her LinkedIn profile scrubbed. Her title, Executive Associate, replaced with nothing. Poetic, really. They'd spent years deleting my name. Now they were the ones erased. I didn't gloat. Not out loud. But when the courier arrived that evening with a thick envelope, a formal apology and a settlement offer with more zeros than I could count, I smiled for the first time in months. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about acknowledgement. Truth. And for once, I didn't have to fight to be seen. Still, revenge doesn't leave you untouched. There's a quiet after it, not peace exactly, but a kind of hollow calm. Like standing in the ruins of something you once loved and realizing you're free to rebuild, even if the ground still smokes. I took a walk that night. The city lights shimmered off the glass towers I used to admire from my office. Every one of them felt different now. Less intimidating, more human. A man passed me on the sidewalk, talking on his phone. Trust me, I've got everything under control. I almost laughed. Because that was Elliot's line. His mantra. His mask. Control. Such a fragile illusion. I stopped by a coffee shop near the old office, the one where he'd first told me, "Your family." The barista recognized me from the news. "So, you really did it," she said softly. "You took him down." I nodded. "No," I said after a moment. "He took himself down. I just turned on the lights." That night, I printed the original contract one last time, the one with both our signatures, and framed it above my desk. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder, trust is earned, not owed. And sometimes, the only way to reclaim your worth is to let the truth do the cutting. He cut me out of the bonus. But I owned the contract. And in the end, that meant I owned the ending, too. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, a friend, a boss, a partner, and found a way to rise from it? Tell me your story in the comments below. I read every one. Speech balloon. And if you love stories where karma finally catches up, hit subscribe. The next tale of justice drops soon. High voltage.